Zimbabwe's Constitutional Court has been hearing the opposition MDC's election results challenge today. And for the first time in Zimbabwe's history, those proceedings have been broadcast live. The MDC alliance is challenging President Emmerson Mnangagwa's poll victory. It's accusing the ruling ZANU-PF of vote rigging, but the Electoral Commission has denied the accusations. President Mnangagwa has urged the court to dismiss the challenge, which has delayed his inauguration. The court is due to make a decision on Friday.
I'm hoping they will go through the evidence as necessary and give a what's just outcome, probably, hoping in favor of Chamisa maybe.
I think the court, they must do it in good faith so that everyone must be satisfied after the ruling of the court. No matter which party is it, or no matter which candidate is it, no matter what circumstances or anything that has been happening before, I think we are just expecting everything to be free and fair.
The people of Zimbabwe have huge expectations from whoever the court will decide as the winner of the elections. The economy is struggling, and all we want is restoration of good governance.
Let's get you the latest on these developments now. I'm joined from Harare by CGTN's Farai Mwakutuya. Farai, what's the latest on the election challenge in court? Can you talk us through the arguments presented today?
Well, Panina, the very latest is that just a few minutes ago, less than 10 minutes ago, the proceedings at the court came to a close. So the oral arguments in this case, the court concluded hearing those oral arguments a very short while ago. Now, what happened throughout the course of the day, we began with the MDC Alliance, lawyers representing the MDC Alliance, presenting their case this morning before the 9 justices of the Constitutional Court. Now, they allege manipulation and rigging of the vote. They allege that votes for Emmerson Mnangagwa were inflated. They also say that votes for their candidate, Nelson Chamisa, were deflated. And they put forward their evidence making a case that President-elect Emmerson Mnangagwa at this point did not get the 50+1 majority required to avoid a runoff, and so they say a runoff must be ordered by the court. We heard rebuttals from both the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and the ruling ZANU-PF's lawyers, both claiming that the MDC case has no merits, that there was no meddling in the election, there was no manipulation, and there was no electoral fraud. They also say that this case should be thrown out on a technicality because the MDC went beyond the time required for it to lodge its applications. It did so it lodged its application with the court within 7 days, but those papers were then served to the respondents on the 8th day, and they argue that that's a technicality where they went beyond the required time. So that is the very latest here from the court. The court has said that on Friday afternoon, 2 p.m. local time, that is 12 GMT, they will make their ruling. So we'll be back here in 2 days.
Right, so the court making its decision on Friday, Farai. What's the process ahead of that ruling? What happens next?
Well, what happens next is obviously these arguments have been presented. All the evidence has been before the justices already. They've been mulling through this since Friday, the 10th of August, when the MDC lodged its challenge, as well as the responses from all the other respondents. They've been going through these documents, the evidence. They've heard the oral arguments today, and they will now sit and confer, look at the merits, discuss this, confer around it, and then come back with that, with that ruling on Friday afternoon. What then happens thereafter is, constitutionally, once that ruling is made, a swearing in or inauguration ceremony for whoever will be named as president must happen within 48 hours of that ruling. So we expect that by Sunday, someone will be inaugurated. We're not sure who as yet, because that ruling is yet to be made. The court has the power. Let me just quickly say that the court has the power to either uphold the election result, which means that President Mnangagwa will remain president, or will be inaugurated, to overturn the result and name Nelson Chamisa the president, or order a runoff, which is what the MDC seems to be pursuing now.
Right, so President Mnangagwa, like you mentioned, is calling on the court to throw out this case. Talk to us more about that.
Well, the president in his court papers, the papers that he put as a response and rebuttal to the election challenge, points to that fact I made earlier, I alluded to earlier, the fact that, you know, the Constitution says that within 7 days this petition or a challenge to the election result must be lodged. Now, he claims that while the MDC lodged its papers within 7 days to the court, those papers were then needed to then be served to the respondents, who included himself as well as all the other election candidates. That only happened on the 8th day, and that is because the MDC, waited until the very last minute. I mean, we waited outside this courtroom on that Friday afternoon, just about 30 minutes before the court closed. So because they did that at the last minute, these papers were then served the following day, and so that is the technicality on which President Mnangagwa is saying that challenge must be thrown out. He's also pointing out to the fact that, look, this country does need to move forward. We need, to go ahead, and we can't be in limbo, held in suspense, and basically saying that the MDC has no merits. It has not put any concrete evidence to support its, allegations of vote rigging and electoral fraud.
Right, so in 2 days we shall know the court's decision. Farai, thank you very much for joining us. Farai Makutuya, live for us in Harare. Let's get you more perspective on these developments in Zimbabwe, and I'm joined from Johannesburg by Gideon Chitanga. He is an analyst at the Center for the Study of Democracy at the University of Johannesburg. Gideon, what's your take on this court challenge? Does the MDC have just cause?
I think it's important that the MDC has taken this issue to court, the issue of their allegations that the outcome of the elections was rigged. It is important for emerging democracies, and particularly in Africa, to explore all peaceful measures for redress. And in this case, judiciary institutions, I think, are the best avenue to resolve the issues of contentious or disputed electoral outcomes. But having said that, the case of Zimbabwe, or the history of electoral contestation in Zimbabwe, shows that elections in and by themselves are failing to resolve the issues that are being contested in the country. And in that context, I don't think that a legal process by and in itself, just like elections, will be adequate to solve the key issues that will come out that are being contested in the constitutional court. What I see is that the Constitutional Court itself has provided a platform for the opposition to bring their issues in the public domain through the Constitutional Court. And the political effect would be that the legitimacy, as I see it, of the new government that would come out of this election will continue to be contentious, whether it was the opposition winning their case or it's the ruling party, ZANU-PF under Mnangagwa, winning the case. So I take it that Zimbabwe needs comprehensive dialogue, which is broadly inclusive in its structure, and in terms of the issues that has to be dealt with. I think that whoever wins or this constitutional case should initiate a process, a broadly inclusive process of dialogue, if they are to retain domestic legitimacy.
Right, so looking at the current context, of course, judicial system seen as the best way of seeking redress. How robust and independent is Zimbabwe's judicial system? Can the Constitutional Court hear this case without reproach?
So part of the issues that are described in the language of the Zimbabwe crisis relates to the partisan role of the judiciary, where the judiciary is seen or viewed as an extension of ZANU-PF. That was institutionalized under the presidents of former President Robert Mugabe, and I don't think that Mnangagwa's interim presidency in the past 6 or 7 months has changed that. The 2 judges that he has appointed to the bench of the Constitutional Court have been criticized by many observers, including civil society, as extremely partisan appointments. During the appointments which were made by former President Mugabe, Mnangagwa was the Minister of Justice, And so he had a big hand in determining who got onto the bench of the Constitutional Court. That raises concerns about the independence of the Constitutional Court itself, and some observers have suggested that this court case is not just an issue of electoral fraud, but it is also an issue about how the Constitutional Court will conduct itself, given that the perceptions of partisanship are actually deep, and the world is watching whether they will be able to autonomously and independently exercise their jurisdiction and execute this case in terms of the legal mandate, and not political pressure from the political players themselves.
And Gideon, how much are these developments damaging Zimbabwe's image on the global stage, especially given that President Mnangagwa has been pushing the idea that the country is open for business?
So I think that President Mnangagwa is sincere in advancing the idea that Zimbabwe is open for business. However, it doesn't seem that he believes that other fundamentals outside liberalizing the economy are important in terms of attracting investment in the country. I think the perception within ZANU-PF is that we can open the country for investment without really opening it up politically or subscribing to proper democratic rule, as it were. So my take is that there is a lukewarm kind of attitude towards democracy, and there is intense, robust push for the privatization, opening the economy to a market economy where people would be free to come and invest and reap the rewards, as it were. But unfortunately, I think that such a view is problematic, in the sense that people are viewing Zimbabwe as a country where politics has always been a problem, and Zimbabwe can't be open to investment without fixing its institutions, including political institutions. So I think observers of the country who are interested in investing in the country are asking themselves whether their money would be secure if they invested in Zimbabwe without a sense of judiciary autonomy. Because then, if the pervasive political problems were to arise, including the previous situation where political force was used to seize private property, were to happen without due recourse to the judiciary system, then investors would lose their property. So I guess that there would be nervousness for some time until there is evidence that money can get into Zimbabwe and it's secure, and whoever invests is assured of their property and benefits.
Gideon Chitanga in Johannesburg, thank you for your time.